Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we are talking about how you can drop up to 2 stone in 90 days as a property business owner, property entrepreneur, property investor, whatever terminology you want to use. And the way that I want to put this is ultimately if I had a client come to me and say, I want to drop 2 stone in the next 90 days, I want to lose the stubborn body fat, this is exactly what I would give them. Okay, so if that sounds like you, if it sounds like something that you want to achieve, maybe you want to stick around for this one because I think it'll be really useful. So the first thing that I would say is the goal of 90 days and 2 stone, that might not necessarily be your goal. Your goal might be less than that. It might be slightly more than that. That's why I always say up to 2 stone in 90 days. So it's first figuring out the goal of what you actually want to achieve. So if we look at 90 days, it's somewhere around about 12 weeks, if I've got that correct, 12, 13 weeks. So the best way to figure out your goal of it is fat loss. And this is a really simple way. And obviously, if you were my client, we're going into a bit more detail about the goal setting, about what's achievable for you. But of course, this has to ultimately be slightly generic. What I would do is focus on losing 1% of your body weight per week, i.e. if you weigh 100 kilograms, I would be looking at losing 1 kilo per week. If you look at that over the course of 13 weeks, around 90 days, you're going to lose around about 2 stone, okay? So you'd be up at the upper ends of the 1 stone going into 2 stone. So if you weigh more than 100 kilograms, if you weigh 120, we can then look at getting you above 2 stone. If you're someone, however, who is relatively short, relatively small, and you're around 80 kilograms but still holding a bit of a belly, you'd be aiming to lose 0.8 of a kilogram and would be closer to a stone to a stone and a half loss in that 90 days. So that's the first thing, is set any intention. Don't set your vision too high. We want to make sure that it's realistic. We want to make sure that it fits around your life, and the goal is very, very important to do so. So that is a very generic way on how to understand the goal that you can hit in that period of time and beyond. So today, I just want to make sure that I give you some actionable takeaways that you can literally go and implement and basically just give you a bunch of value so you can smash your goals in 2025 and make sure that your weight this time when you go on a weight loss journey, you absolutely smash it. Because honestly, I see so much shit out there. I see so many coaches that quite honestly don't know what they're talking about, number one, but especially when it comes to entrepreneurs and business owners, they just give cookie cutter programs, boring and bland meal plans, training programs that are fit for bodybuilders, and then you have the other end of the spectrum of people pushing carnivore, people pushing keto diets on entrepreneurs, and it just doesn't work because there's no flex in it. So today I want to give you some actionable takeaways as to what I would give my clients if they came on board with that goal. So the first thing, let's talk about the foundations. And I'm sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs here potentially, because I'm going to go through some of the basics, but this is really important for those of you that don't understand this stuff. So the first thing to figure out is ultimately how many calories and your macronutrients that you're going to be consuming. If you don't know what macronutrients are, it's basically the free macronutrients that make up a calorie. So in every calorie, there could be carbohydrates, there could be fats, and there could be proteins, okay? So we want to make sure that we have the structure around our diet so we're getting the right amount of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins into our diet. For reference, carbohydrates and proteins both have 4 calories per gram, whereas fats have 9 calories per gram in. So that gives you an idea of how we can structure it. So just looking at that, I want to simplify it massively for you, okay? We're going to look at calories and protein to start with. So your calories, or a calorie deficit, i.e. burning more calories than you're taking in, is what structures every single diet, whether that's a juice diet, whether it's fasting, whether it is carnivore, whether it's keto, whatever that is. A calorie deficit is what makes you lose weight. It's what the every single diet is using that process. It's just a different way to get there. So it's really important to understand that, because then it allows us to build your diet around what you actually want and what you need, and around your lifestyle as a busy property investor and entrepreneur. So the first thing that I want to work out is your calorie amount. So a simple way to work out your calories is using a very, very, very simple sum, which is 10 to 12 calories per pound of body weight. So ultimately, what that would look like is if you were, again, 200 pounds, let's use round numbers because I'm not very good at maths. If you were around 200 pounds, that would look around about 2,000 to 2,400 calories to start your diet with. That gives you a really good estimation to work within. And for the majority of people, that is around about the right number in order to lose body weight. But then it also gives us room to move down into if we need to get to those lower calorie numbers at a later date. When it comes to protein intake, I would be looking at around about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Again, these are simple sums that you can use. Of course, they're generic. Of course, they're not built around your lifestyle. But for the speaking generically and for the majority of people, they are going to be there or thereabouts, right? At the moment, if you are on this journey where you're 2 stone overweight and you're ultimately just starting, I don't want you to worry about your carbohydrates and fats. The only thing that I would say is that your fats, they want to take up at least 20% of your calories. Fats are very, very important. Ultimately, they are what make up your hormones. They will be very important for your cognitive function, so on and so forth. But to start with, for the vast majority of people, I just want to start you with calories and macros. But that being said, your food quality is very, very important. Just because I've said calories and macros doesn't mean that you can get your calories and macros from McDonald's and Subway and KFC every single meal and think that you're going to feel absolutely amazing, because you won't. You'll feel like trash, your hormones won't be in a good position, and generally you just won't feel good. So we still need to make sure that your food quality and your micronutrients are getting in. So the biggest thing that I can say there is eat the rainbow, have plenty of colours on your plates, plenty of fruit and vegetables throughout the day, plenty of herbs and spices. That is what's going to give you your micronutrients. So the second thing is activity levels. And one of the biggest things when it comes to activity levels is steps. And you've probably heard that you need to hit 10,000 steps a day in order to lose body weight. And 10,000 steps a day is a complete BS. It's a made up thing. It's very, very generic. Although for a lot of people, it does work out being true. For other people, it doesn't, because people are doing 12, 13, 14,000 steps a day and thinking, hey, why aren't I dropping body fat? Why aren't I losing weight? I'm super active, so on and so forth. Now, the most important thing with steps is what I want to do is take where you are now and increase that by around about 20%. So i.e., if you were doing 8,000 steps at the moment, then we would increase it by around about 2,000 or 1,600 to get you closer to that 10,000 mark. If you're currently doing 5,000, let's add 2,000 and get you to a mark of 6,000 to 7,000. It's just about improving where you are. It's about doing more than you are now. It's about being more active. Ultimately, being more active means that you're going to burn more calories over time. So have a look on your phone. If you go on your iPhone, Samsung, whatever you use, there is usually on the vast majority of phones now, there's a health app, and it's going to tell you the amount of steps that you do per day. Have a look at that number. Whatever that number is, add around about 20 to 30% to that number, and that is the amount of steps that I want you to hit at the start of your journey when you're aiming to lose 2 stone, up to 2 stone in the next 90 days. If you do hit plateaus, you can always add more activity and you can always bring your calories down. That is what's going to get you through that plateau. It's what's going to bust through the plateau, because what's working on day 1 isn't necessarily going to work on week 4 or week 6 or week 8. And that's why with my clients, we make sure that we do a weekly check-in, and we make sure that in real time, we make the tweaks, the optimizations and the changes to your plans so you bust through those plateaus and don't just get stuck there. So I know you're probably thinking, if you're a property investor and you're super, super busy, how the fuck am I meant to get 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 steps in a day? And I completely understand that. At the end of the day, you probably spend a lot of your time on your bum. You probably spend a lot of your time at a desk. You probably spend a lot of your time on the phone, laptop. And even when you're doing site visits, you're driving, there's not too much activity unless you are doing site visits and you're walking around and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you're probably relatively sedentary, okay? So just a few tips on how to improve them. You don't have to get things done in one big walk. The way that I would structure my day if I was struggling to get my steps in would be to get up 20 or 30 minutes earlier and just get 2,000 to 3,000 steps in and go for a 20 or 30 minute walk before I started work. It's a nice easy win. And then 2, throughout the day, I think I just said A and then 2, but 2, I would make sure that I stay relatively active no matter what I was doing. So I'll give you an example. I have a treadmill, so when I'm working, I can be taking phone calls, I could be taking client calls, I could be voice noting, messaging, I could be emailing whilst I'm walking. But even if you're just taking a 20 or 30 minute phone call with someone, if you just walked up and down outside on the street, you're going to get 2,000 to 3,000 steps in. The next thing is I can't remember what metric we're using, whether it's A, 1, 2, 3, C, whatever. The next thing is I would just look at simple ways that you can get your steps in terms of if you're going going to a supermarket, park at the back of the car park instead of squeezing into the space at the front. It might only be a few hundred steps, but throughout a week, that adds up massively. If you work in an office block every day, instead of taking the lift, instead of taking the escalator, make sure that you take the stairs instead, and just have that conscious effort to do a little bit more. Have that conscious effort to actually move a little bit more and stop taking the easy way out. I see it all the time, right? Because I travel a lot. The past couple of years, I've done like 25 flights a year. See it all the time. People spend 7 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours on a plane, and they get straight off it, and the stairs are always free, and then the escalators and the lifts are absolutely packed, and it blows my mind because people haven't moved for 10 hours. So just bring that mindset into your life of like, okay, I've just got to move more, I've got to do a little bit more, and if that means doing an extra structured walk per day as well, then do it. And also on your lunch breaks, that's also a good time to get them in. You should be taking lunch breaks. Okay, next we are going to be talking about your gym training. And I say gym training, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a gym, but your resistance training, you could do home workouts. We have plenty of clients that do. If you were to do home workouts, I'd suggest just getting a cheap set of resistance bands. You can get them off Amazon. I don't have an affiliate link or anything, unfortunately, but just a 20 or 30 pound pair of resistance bands is going to give you a good opportunity to progress your lifts. Now, again, everything that I say here is relatively general, but it gives you a good idea of what I would do if I'm looking to lose 2 stone, build an athletic physique, and get in amazing shape. Now, the first thing that I will say about your training is that we are not using it to lose the body fat, okay? And to some people, that might seem a little bit backward. You might be used to doing calorie burning workouts, but actually we focus on what we're doing in the kitchen and what we're consuming and what we're eating, our diet. That is what is going to lose body fat, along with our general activity levels. Those are the 2 things that are going to have the biggest impact. When we're in the gym, all I want your focus to be on is improving. It's getting stronger, it's getting fitter, it's the performance in the gym. Ultimately, if you're doing that, it allows you to look your best because you're going to be building the muscles. So when you lose the body fat, you reveal a physique rather than looking like a deflated balloon with no muscle, okay? Because otherwise, when you do lose the body fat, you're not going to like how you look anyway. So here's what I would recommend. Again, so many coaches give clients bodybuilding programs that are fit for bodybuilders because that's all they know. As a busy property investor, as a busy entrepreneur, there's quite a high likelihood that you're extremely busy. There's quite a high likelihood that you don't have much time. So with my method, you only need around about 40 minutes for 3 times per week to get your sessions in. Anything less than that is suboptimal. Anything more than that, of course, we can work with as well. But 3 times a week for around 40 minutes to focus on yourself is all I would ask for to get you in a fantastic condition. And here's what I would suggest you do. If you are going to train 3 days a week, I would suggest those sessions, for the vast majority of people, are full body sessions, okay? That means that we're going to be training our full body, every single muscle from our shoulders down to our calves, okay? That allows us to train 3 times a week and make sure that each muscle is trained 3 times or at least twice throughout the body. What that also does is allows us to manage the volume on that session, so we're not overtraining on the session, and so each set is still very efficient and still very effective, and we get the most out of it so you can recover for the next session, okay? So for some people, that's not going to be the right thing to do. For example, if you're a man and you really want to specialize on your shoulders, chest and back, we might do 2 uppers and 1 lower if you're going to train 3 times a week. If you're a female and you really want to work on your glutes and your hamstrings, then we might focus on 2 lowers, 1 upper, for example. But for the vast majority of people, I would suggest doing some realm of full body. And again, that is going to differ from person to person, but speaking generically, that is what is going to work best for the vast majority of you. Whilst you're in your training, if we want to keep it to, say, 40 minutes, I would make sure that you're utilizing intensification methods that are going to make your workout quicker. So it's going to make it harder while you're doing it, but it's going to make it quicker. So I would use things like rest pause sets. I would use supersets, giant sets, so on and so forth, that are going to ultimately add intensity to your workout, but shorten the time. A superset, for example, you take 2 exercises. Let's just take a chest press and a dumbbell row, for example. So we're working out our chest and then we're working out our back. You do the exercises one after the other. You don't rest in between. So all of a sudden you've cut out that rest. It means that you're not going to be scrolling on your phone. It means that you're not going to be wasting your time in the gym, and you're getting the most out of your workouts whilst shortening the time that you're in there so you can get straight back to it. And actually that really helps, because at that point I just said you're not just going to be sitting on your phone looking at emails anyway. I could do a whole load other podcast on that, but you don't want to be getting distracted whilst you're in the gym, scrolling through work emails and then waste all of your time in there. This wants to be your time where you focus on you, where you focus on your progress. It's really, really important. So yeah, leave your phone in the locker if you can. Okay, so cardio. Cardio is something I get asked a lot about when clients start. And for a lot of people, we do start them with cardio, and for a lot of people, we don't. Because ultimately, if I take someone that's completely sedentary at the moment, that has a lifestyle of the typical property investor that hasn't been looking after their health for many years, and then I ask them to add cardio, add training, add steps, so on and so forth, is a little bit too much. So what we typically do for that person is we will start them by adding 20-30% of the steps, and then we will add in those gym sessions that are built and bespoke around them. But in terms of cardio, for that type of person, I wouldn't add it. However, that being said, doing some form of cardio and some form of activity is very important for your heart health over time. So I would like to add it in for the vast majority of people. And then if we're just talking about fat loss, your gym sessions, your steps, your diet is going to be enough to lose the body fat. What I would say is, if you do ever hit a plateau on your journey, so let's say you start off with what I've just given you in terms of your steps, your diet and your gym work, and that's all you do, and for the first 4 weeks you're absolutely flying, you're 4 kilograms down. Let's say you get to week 5 and then week 6, and for 2 weeks you haven't lost weight. I would then class that as you've hit a small plateau. What you can then look at is how you can utilize cardio as a tool to continue losing body fat. So what we want to do is just widen that deficit, and we can either do that by dropping your food, dropping your calories, dropping your macros, or increasing your activity and burning more calories. So then I would look at, okay, we can either add steps or we can add some cardio. If you were to add cardio, I would initially look at, for the vast majority of people, adding in a low intensity steady state form of cardio. Low intensity steady state ultimately means what it says on the tin. You're going to go low intensity and it's going to be at a steady state, i.e. you're not really getting your heart rate super high and then low and then high and then low. It's just going to be a steady state. So some examples of that might be the Stairmaster at a steady pace, keeping your heart rate around about 130 or 140, or an incline walk or a cycle, so on and so forth. Okay, so that is how I would utilize cardio as a tool for fat loss. Next, and this is probably the most important point on this video, okay, and that is weekly planning. For the vast majority of entrepreneurs, this is where the weeks go wrong. I probably should have put this as point number 1, but if there's one point in this that I could highlight, this would be it. You have to plan your weeks. You have to know what you're doing and when you're doing it. Again, that is something that I take the thinking out of for our clients for that reason, because ultimately, if you allow yourself to manage your own schedule and prioritize everything else, your work, so on and so forth, business, you're never going to make any time for yourself. So what I would suggest doing is, on your quietest day, for the vast majority of people, that's going to be a Saturday or a Sunday, I would take some time to plan your next 7 days, okay? And just the same way, you probably do this for work already, you probably do it for your business. You're planning calls with people, you're planning meetings, you're planning coffees to go meet people, you're planning when you're going to do certain tasks, when you're going to go through the accounts, when you're going to do any admin. You plan all of this in. I want you to treat your gym work the exact same way. I want you to treat yourself the exact same way. And the reason I need you to treat yourself the same way is because you're priority. You have to treat yourself like a priority. You have to treat yourself like an important meeting, okay? So make sure at the start of the week, what I do is I get my Google Calendar out, I time block absolutely everything, and I color code it, okay? So my work sessions are blue, my downtime is yellow, and then my training and my gym and my runs and my bikes, that is in green, okay? So I have it color coded. And then I have some other stuff, even when I get into the nitty gritty of work, I have different color codes for team and client stuff. So that is how I do things. But and then I set reminders on them. So I get a reminder when I'm meant to be hitting the gym 2 hours before I'm meant to be hitting it. So it allows me to prep and make sure that I've got everything sorted before I go. If you just let the week take you, you've already failed, because you're then going to be on the back foot. You're then not going to prioritize. You're then going to be chasing your tail. And what does that do? That means that you lose your self-confidence in yourself. Because you're chasing your tail, you then miss one gym session. Because you're chasing your tail, you forget to prep a meal, and therefore you go and get fast food, or you get food on the go and it doesn't fit your plan. That means you haven't followed through with your word. That means you lose confidence in yourself. That means you start doubting yourself. It means that you start blaming yourself. And that's a negative place to be, because you then get in this circle that is really unmotivational, and you think, fuck it, what's the point? This doesn't feel good anyway. I'm just going to quit, okay? So that is why planning and scheduling your weeks is of the utmost importance. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so planning and scheduling is the number one thing for busy individuals. Flexibility. Flexibility again is super important for a property investor and an entrepreneur in any way, shape or form, but particularly with a property investor. Your lives are hectic. You're always planning in some way, you're always thinking about something, you're always stressed about something, you're always on the phone to people, you've always got an endless task to do, you're always on the road going to visit sites, so on and so forth. Like, it's hectic, it's chaotic. I don't know if you realize that, but from an outside perspective, it absolutely is. And if we don't have flexibility in our lives, if we don't have flexibility with our diet, our training, so on and so forth, and we just expect ourselves for the rest of our lives to be these rigid robots, it doesn't work. If you think of something that isn't flexible, take a plank of wood, for example, and you bend it enough and you apply enough pressure and it doesn't flex, what happens? It just shears and it snaps, okay? What we want to make sure that we're doing is we have something that's actually flexible, so no matter if it bends, it still works. So introduce flexibility into your schedule as well. What that might look like is ensuring that you still eat out, ensuring that you're still enjoying social occasions, and not just saying, hey, I'm on a diet, I'm not doing any of this. You need to make sure that there is the flexibility in there to enjoy that stuff, because it's an important part of your life. The same with the gym. There might be a day that you have to miss. There might be a day that you have to push back. Have the flexibility to allow yourself to do that, because again, if you do, you then get stuck in that exact same cycle that I was talking about a minute. If you're super rigid and you're super robotic, what happens is you get stuck in the blame game, you get stuck in the self-doubt, you get stuck in knocking your confidence, and obviously we do not want that to happen. That is when there's more kind of long-term effects of you doubting that you're actually it's actually possible to do this for yourself. So a really important one for property investors is eating out. There's a lot of networking involved, whether that's at an Indian restaurant, which seems popular at the moment, or it is down the local coffee shop with a slice of cake, whatever that might be. Eating out is very important to actually keeping your diet, in my opinion, because again, if we cut it out, there's no flexibility, it's super rigid, it's going to break, you're not going to stick to it for a long period of time. We want to make sure that it's sustainable and maintainable, as well as losing the body weight in that time. So a few simple rules to help you choose when you are eating out, when you're networking, so on and so forth. So the first thing that I would say is, if you're eating out just once a week, so if you are someone that eats out around about once a week or once every 2 weeks, what you can follow is the 2 of 4 method. So the 2 of 4 method is taking starters, mains, desserts, and alcohol, and saying that you can have 2 out of 4 of those things every time that you go out. So if you do choose alcohol, that doesn't mean that you can have a whole bottle of wine. I would suggest sticking to 1 or 2 drinks still. But what that might look like if you choose alcohol and a main dish is you choose your main, which we'll go through how to choose that in a second, and then you have 1 glass of white wine or 1 vodka and Diet Coke or something. Okay, again, there's wiser choices that we can make than having a pint. Or you might have a starter and a main, or you might have a main and a dessert, but that still gives you some level of accountability, something to stick to whilst you're out, and it manages your calories rather than going completely overboard and thinking, fuck it, I'm out, I'm going to have starter, main, dessert, and a couple of drinks as well. That's when the damage is done, okay? So it's making sure that you're making decisions when you're out. However, if you are someone that eats out more often, so let's say you're going on 2, 3, 4 networking meals per week, and maybe even you have your lunch out every day with investors, with people that you're networking with, so on and so forth, then we need to make some more sacrifices, because ultimately you're eating out more. So that's when I would look at the options that are going to mean that you're sticking to your diet more so whilst you are out. So I would, number 1, choose lean meats or lean protein sources when you are selecting your meals. So that is something like a chicken breast, white fish like cod or haddock, or a lean steak like a rump. And I would follow a rule that I call a quarter half. Quarter half is ultimately quarter of a plate of protein, quarter of a plate of carbohydrate that is unfried. Really importantly, I would go for an unfried carbohydrate, so not fries or not chips, and then half a plate of fiber, so vegetables, lots of color, so on and so forth. The vegetables are going to help number 1, get your nutrients in, but number 2, they're going to help keep you fuller for longer and regulate your hunger. The protein again is going to help regulate your hunger, but it also helps your protein targets throughout the day to allow you to recover and build muscle. And then the carbohydrates, because everyone loves carbohydrates, so you don't want to miss out on those. So that's what I would follow. If you are eating out more often, Again, you might choose something that is more of a sacrifice, like a chicken salad or something, which is a really good option. You can ask restaurants, not many people know this, they just select what's on the menu. You can ask restaurants to be flexible with things. You can ask restaurants not to put the olive oil in. You can ask restaurants, if you're getting a salad, to put the dressing on the side. That is a big game changer. Some salads have about 200-300 calories in, and then they put the dressing on top, and then all of a sudden they're 800 or 900 calories because it's full of fat. So it's really important that we do little things like that, and you prioritize yourself and just ask the question, and that's going to make a big difference. Again, with my clients, what we do is if they are going out to eat, they'll send me the menu, I'll work through the menu, I'll tell them what to choose so the thought is out of their head and they know exactly what to do. But that is what I would do if I were in your shoes. So there is a silent weight loss tool that is really important, and that is sleep. And this is one that I feel like the world's getting a little bit better with this, but there's the whole hustle hard mindset grind that discounts the value of sleep. And sleep on your fitness journey, but also on your journey as an entrepreneur, is one of the most valuable things in my opinion, because it improves every single area of your life. So first, how sleep affects your hormones, which then affects your hunger. You have two hunger hormones. You have leptin and you have ghrelin. On a very simple and basic level, one of those hormones tells you when you're hungry, one of them tells you when you're full. Guess what happens when you're severely underslept? The one that tells you you're hungry goes through the roof, and the one that tells you you're full ultimately drops. So what then happens the next day or on that night is that you start feeling really hungry, you start craving certain foods that potentially aren't brilliant for you, and that is when you could fall off track. Second thing is, no one makes a good decision when they're underslept. So it's much easier to talk yourself out of going to the gym because you don't have the capacity to deal with it. And it's much easier to feel stressed, and therefore you want something to give. So either your diet gives or your training gives, because those are the easy things. It's easy to put them at the back of the pile. So prioritize your sleep. It's more important than you know for your energy enhancement. It's more important than you know for your productivity. It's more important than you know for your muscle growth, and also your hunger and sticking to a diet. Sleep is super important. Okay, next is accountability. Again, I'm sure you understand why I believe accountability is so important, but especially for you property investors and you business owners, accountability in some regard is extremely important. That doesn't necessarily mean hiring a coach, although that is the easiest way to get high level accountability from someone that knows what they're doing. But at least tell your network what you're doing. You property investors are extremely lucky to have such an amazing community of people around you that are generally supportive, that are generally positive. Utilize that. Make sure that you're telling your network what you're doing, because then they're not going to allow you to give in to temptation. They're not going to allow you to do certain things. They're going to call you out on your bullshit. Or get an accountability buddy. Speak to someone specifically and get an accountability buddy. But like I say, if you want the highest level of support, the highest level of guidance, and the highest level of accountability, ultimately, hire someone that you believe you're a good fit for when it comes to coaching. Look, whether that's me or whether it's someone else, just make sure you do it and you will thank yourself, okay? So accountability is going to be an absolute game changer. Okay, and finally, again, I could make this podcast a 5-hour long one, to be honest. There's so much that we could go through, but again, I wanted to go through the basics and simple actionable things that you could do today. The last thing that I would tell you to do is track your progress. Make sure that you're actually tracking what you're doing, whether that goes in the gym and you're tracking whether you're getting stronger and you're following a logbook and you're making sure that you're sticking to a training program and you're actually progressing, or whether it's tracking your body weight in the mornings. Make sure you're tracking your progress. Make sure you understand if you are actually moving forwards, because if you don't, it's very easy to look in the mirror, think that nothing's changed, and ultimately that gets very disheartening. You lose your will to continue pushing on forwards, and then you quit anyway because you haven't seen results quick enough. Whereas if you track your progress, you can see that you're getting stronger. For example, you might track your energy levels on a daily or weekly basis of how they've been. You can see that you're getting more energy and that your mood's improving. And then of course, if you're tracking your scale weight, you might be able to see that that's coming down as well. All those things are brilliant metrics of success. Same with tape measure and measuring your body as well. Make sure that you're just measuring your success in a way that fits you. I cannot emphasize enough how important tracking your stats are for your success going forwards. Okay. But yeah, hopefully that was really useful. And I think the biggest takeaway that I want you to take away is that you just have to show up for yourself consistently. You have to do these things at 80% of the time, 90% of the time. Don't be looking to be at 100% or 110% every now and again. We don't want you to be consistently great. We want you to be we don't want you to be occasionally great. I want you to be consistently good. That is what's going to make the real change, okay? So keep showing up for yourself, keep doing what you're doing, and look, if I can help in any which way, whether that's a small bit of advice or whether you want to work with me, just reach out off the back of this. Let me know the biggest takeaway from the podcast, and if you have any questions specific to you so I can help in more, help you more specifically, just give me a shout, okay? Thank you.